dual U.S. and Swiss citizen and has lived and worked abroad in London, Paris, and Shanghai. She creates and produces impact-driven strategies and experiences for authentic connection and positive change. In the 1980s, she created and produced brand-aligned social impact initiatives as public relations director for Ralph Lauren. And ever since, she has integrated the greater good into her professional endeavors. Her partner in this project, Stephen Ullman, they're both residents of Santa Monica. He's a native Californian and lives off Montana Avenue. With this film and impact campaign, they are doing what they can to be an active part of the homeless situation. Working on this project, they are inspired by personal stories and are eager to share them with audiences in LA and well beyond. You can tell I'm not an MC. If we should have had Bill do this. All right. I would say take it away. Let's see what you have for us today, Christine and Stephen.
Thank you so much, Dana. And I only found out sort of recently, I think at the last Myth Salon that you'd moved. It's great to see you up there. Anyway, we're just going to say a little something before we show you the what we call the promo reel for the film. It's just a 4-minute clip. But I wanted to say something that someone said about a different way of looking at things earlier, and that's really what this project is about. It's about breaking through the stereotypes of what we think is the homeless situation and people experiencing housing insecurity. And anyway, that's all I'll say, because we'll talk a little bit afterwards, and then we want to really make it an interactive conversation amongst us all. So, but thank you, Dana, for introducing us to the Mastery Circle. I'm thrilled to be part of this group. And Stephen, you're probably
I wanted to just add very quickly before I show the reel that rather than yet another story about the so-called plight of the homeless, we're looking at a more positive angle on this, what can be done. The film will be about the magic that can happen when a formerly unhoused person gets keys to a real home. And not only the courage it takes for that individual, but the support partners and organizations that help that to happen. With that said, I'm going to share my screen and show you a little 4-minute reel.
In 2028, when we welcome the games, we'll show the world the real LA.
I'm the type of person, I feel like I've been homeless all my life.
Homeless. I'm crashing at your house because you feel bad.
I fell into homelessness.
In the Name of Hope is about the magic that happens when formerly unhoused people move into forever homes where their hopes and dreams can flourish. The stories that will unfold will illuminate the arduous yet transformational journeys from homeless to homed. This feature film is about not only the courage it takes for them to make that move, but also the support partners necessary to make that happen. Homeless encampments and unhoused people are everywhere. While we may see them, we avert our gaze, avoid eye contact, and rarely, if ever, look into their hearts. However, just like us, they have names, faces, stories, hopes, and dreams.
New plan by the city of Los Angeles to tackle the issue of homelessness.
There are 47,000 unhoused people in Los Angeles City. 2,000 people died on our streets last year. So this is an emergency.
I never had my own place. I always lived with him. It was always his place, and he was in control of whether I stayed or go.
Evidence known so long.
Say hi, I'm Little Man. Say, Mommy rescued me from our abuser.
He had him locked into this huge bird cage, and my heart broke. because I was able for the first time to see myself through him. I was locked in this bird cage, no real food or love. I knew if I didn't leave, one of us was gonna die.
I had had a back surgery in late 2018. During that time, the doctors were very generous with pain medication. It was easier for me to avoid the pain of withdrawal to just go on the streets and buy drugs. Stayed with friends, stayed in my car. Yeah, it wasn't good.
My husband till this day doesn't know like everything that I've been through. And to me, being on drugs and being homeless, I was my lowest, and homeboy loved me no matter what. Just staying home, like, oh my God, you know, like people could come to my house.
Yeah, things are looking up.
So I wanted to invite you guys into my home. Oh my God.
We're making In the Name of Hope to inspire and motivate individuals as well as public and private sector organizations to act in whatever way they can to end homelessness in the United States.
We want to reach not only people who are currently unhoused, but people who are in a position to help.
I'm one man. I can't do much, but I carry shoes in my truck. I saw a guy without shoes one day. So the next day I made sure he had a pair. And I've just kept some in my truck ever since.
Homelessness and housing insecurity is a fact of life for everyone, really, not just in Los Angeles, where it's so much greater, in California than other parts of the country. But I'm saying this because LA's here, New York, Florida, and then the rest of the the rest of the country sort of comes in after that. But it's all over the world. And our approach to this is very much to show people, these are three very relatable stories. Ronnie comes from going into the hospital for back surgery. Nia comes from, she actually was sleeping under a bridge, addicted to meth, but she was, couch surfing and all of that. And there are so many other faces to homelessness and housing insecurity that we tend to not look at. And what we really are looking to do is to go into the lives, into the personal stories, and allow these people, these individuals, to share their stories, where they've come from, but from a place where they're now in permanent housing, where they have a safe and secure place, which may look different from one person to another. But that's really what this is about. We want to let these voices, these people, be heard. We want to break through the stereotypes, and we want to also show that it takes not just a village, but it takes a massive village. And a lot of this is about the support partners, whether it's a spouse or a family member that says, hey, you can sleep on my in our place, or whether it's an organization like the National Coalition for the Homeless that is about advocacy and policy, or Covenant House, which is about helping youth homelessness, or whether it's about food banks that provide food that help people be able to have safe and stable lifestyles. So that's what I'll say right now. We can talk more, but I also want to let Stephen add a little bit as well.
I have an office in a building in West Los Angeles, and next door to that building used to be a parking lot. And about 3.5 years ago, that parking lot started to get torn up. And I watched this happen. I didn't know at the time that the property belonged to the city of Los Angeles. And it took about 1.5 years as I watched construction crews do the subterranean work, pour a slab, and construct the first story of a building. I heard rumors that it was to be a shelter for people who were unhoused, and that turned out not to be the truth. It was designed to be permanent supportive housing. Anyway, after the year and a half of getting the first story up, 5 more stories went up in 9 days' time. Prefabricated studio apartment units built in Compton, trucked up and then craned on. And I got to know, and you just saw the man who was the superintendent of the prefab company and the craning part of that. His name is Troy. He's the guy who said he's a construction guy. He's been in construction for 45 years. He's the guy who always carries a brand new pair of shoes in his truck. And when he sees somebody who needs them, he pulls over and gives them out. He has bought from Skechers and given away over 100 pairs of shoes now. And here's this, kind of burly construction guy. And you saw talking about it brought him to tears. Anyway, this building is now complete. Christine and I went to the ribbon cutting, which is the first time we met Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles. And we had prepared 30 seconds for her, hoping that she might take a meeting with us. And she responded with, first of all, she spent 10 minutes talking with us. She said, not only will I meet with you, I'll work with you on this project, because it's her number one priority is getting people housed. This building has 60 residents now. It's full. And on the ground floor are 3 offices or 4 offices of caseworkers. Every resident has a dedicated caseworker. There are complete wraparound services provided: mental health care, addiction services, job placement, etc. And it's these kind of support partners that we want to feature in the film also. The people who can be part of the solution. And I know 60 people sounds like a drop in the bucket, but what we hope to highlight is the positive. What can people do? How can we get involved? And we hope that the film will be a call to action for people, not just organizations, but individuals. We are committed to giving a substantial part of any profit that this film would make to select not-for-profit organizations that are working in this space. Christine mentioned Covenant House, the National Coalition for the Homeless, and we're partnering with a major food bank. It looks like it's going to be the Los Angeles Food Bank. And we want to support these organizations, and we want to encourage others to do the same. So
the other thing, so there is, as Stephen said before we watched this, there's so much focus on the negative. I mean, we hear stories every single day in the news. But there's so little said about the success stories. We see films that are about the rise of the hero's journey. I don't know if Dana's still here, but the rise of a lowly person to Forrest Gump. Let's take Forrest Gump to all of a sudden he's meeting with the president. But people, we think that if people are, I mean, I know for myself, talking to these people, talking to we call the support partners, hearing what they're doing. I met with a photographer who spent 4 years taking portraits of people on Skid Row in Los Angeles. His portraits are about these people who are homeless. But while he's doing that, he's also getting them resources. He's getting the rent. The rent relief for people. He's getting them coats. We just had another set of atmospheric rivers here in Los Angeles. And after we met, he was going down to Skid Row to help them and make sure that some of the people were going to be off the streets during the rains. So that's a support partner. And if everybody sees, like, they might see this person, Louise, or this person, Kim Watson, this photographer, and they might say, well, there's a part of that I can do. And that's really what we're trying to show, is one, that these people are really, they could be any of us. And I know, Mary Grace, you shared about your daughter, right? Not daughter-in-law. And I would challenge everybody to think, I think that we all have one degree of separation from someone, if not ourselves, who has dealt with homelessness or housing insecurity in their life. And I think now it's more and more prevalent. And there's something that I'm calling Nia in the reel. She talks about it, sleeping on couches. There are a lot of young people that are not doing what we did when we were younger, which was getting a first apartment or living with a roommate, whatever. And they're digital nomads, or they're and my kids are that. So I come to this personally, having grown up in Connecticut and New York and seeing people when I was growing up, but now here in Los Angeles and wherever I travel. I was in South Africa last year, and this is all around us. But the idea of really understanding, just like this group, when you understand, when you hear people's stories and where they're coming from and what their challenges are, all of a sudden, it's not only our brains open up to say, wow, I understand you, but our hearts open up. And I think that's really an important part to eliminating homelessness, which is the goal of the organizations that we're in touch with and partnering with.
And it could really be any of us. One major medical disaster with a huge bill. We want to make clear that the stereotype that the people who are on the street or homeless are drug addicts or what have you it's a myth. And we want to break through those stereotypes. I'll give you a few people who you all know who have lived experience of being unhoused in their lives. People like Sylvester Stallone, Jennifer Lopez, Dr. Phil, Joan Rivers, Halle Berry. All of these people at one point or another were unhoused. So you never know who that person is. But what we recognize is that they are all human beings, individuals who do, as we said in the voiceover for the reel, they have hopes, they have dreams, they have aspirations, and we want to tell their stories, the stories of those who make the positive change or for whom they come out the other side. And I think that message, we hope by changing minds, by opening hearts, we can change minds and get people involved in this. And with that, I would love to hear from you all. Comments, questions?
Yes, Lisa.
So I find it interesting because I live very close to MacArthur Park, that down the end of my block, they're building and I found out from the UPS guy, they're building a huge 3-story facility for the homeless. But what I really want to talk to you, and I love that idea to have them back in community. But there's this one kid who wanders around the neighborhood, is definitely on fentanyl. And I know that a lot of the homeless down here have mental illness and are resistant to being in a home. They want their freedom and they don't want anybody dictating to them what they should and should not do, have dogs or whatever. So how do you incorporate that challenge in your documentary about getting those kind of challenges and people housed? And I'm gonna mute myself so I can.
Yeah. So there are people who choose to be unhoused. We're really looking to shine the light on the people who have found their way, who have had the courage and the stamina to get into housing. We've spent with so that's one thing. There are so many people who were kicked out of housing, and in whatever way they were, and those are the people that can make their way back with the support service. It was one of the things that Mayor Bass and others have really realized, and this does relate to that person that you're talking about, is they need to have the wraparound services. As Stephen was saying, in the building next to where his office is, these case counselors are there to help people fill out forms to talk to them about, you know, whether they're making their meetings, their support meetings, or whatever it is. And I think the thing is, and I think what's being more and more recognized is that, yes, we need the affordable housing, but the affordable housing has to be palatable for these people to move into, so that they feel that they have what they need in order to not just survive, but to actually build their lives, rebuild their lives again. So, you know, as far as the film goes, to answer your question, our conversations will be with people who have found their way back into housing. And so through them, we'll meet the organizations that have helped them, the family members that maybe did the intervention that Robin showed us. Robin is the one in the yellow top. She showed us a photograph on her iPhone that her sister took when she was at her lowest, and it was basically, her sister said, you've got to make a change. So through Robin's story of where she is now, she'll be talking about where she was. And now, actually, to fast forward, she's now a care coordinator, that's her title, at the Union Station mission. And she's helping other people get into housing. So I think a lot of it is about the support. It's not just about getting people off the street. It's about keeping them off the street. And if we do that, Santa Monica, we interviewed the current mayor, Phil Brock, of Santa Monica, and he talks about homeless tourism, because people come here because of the beach and whatever, that they can sleep on the beach, and that there's a more supportive atmosphere here, or climate here for homelessness. But the real issue is the support services. And that's why we really are emphasizing who has helped these people on their journeys. And not to say that they're all, perfect journeys. There are issues that happen when someone has car repairs. They have a car, now they have car repairs, and that has prevented them from being able to make the rent. And so how does that come into play? But I hope that answers at least a little bit of your question.
I see that a couple of people raised their hands, but I can't see who they are. Can somebody, Bill, do you know who that is?
I think
Yes,
Thomas
there's
Briggs
Thomas
is first.
Briggs, there's Patricia, and then Carolyn.
Okay, Thomas?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this presentation. Excuse me. The connection that I want to make, first theoretical and then personal, is that this is a conversation about classism from my perspective and from my professional background, that the same dynamics flow around classism as flow through racism and sexism and all the other isms that I see in myself from my former life, a denial of the difference, just not even recognizing that it exists, not understanding how important it is or how significant it is, minimizing the importance. And I see dysfunctional rescue in me, helping without knowing the person and finding out who they really are. And also blaming the other person, the other group, referring to the other group as those people. So I think maybe you can hear a little bit of the dynamics of what we call modern ism behaviors in there. Now, so I was coming from the housed position, and I saw those same thought patterns in myself toward unhoused people. On the personal side, however, the subprime bank robbery that happened was not only affected the Black community, it was the single largest transfer of wealth out of the Black community in the United States that had ever occurred in history. All the equity that was built up in their homes was lost in that cultural group. The same thing happened to me. I put all of my eggs in the basket of renovating a house in the historic district down in Raleigh, North Carolina. When that subprime bank robbery happened, I lost that house and I lost all of my savings and I had to declare bankruptcy. So now I'm on the other side of this conversation. Like you said, one medical bill away from having nothing. So I don't have inherited assets anymore. They're gone. And I live paycheck to paycheck. And I'm aware of the shame of describing my economic location because, you know, I'm formally educated, and it's not something that I'm proud of. You know, I'm ashamed that I lost my assets in that regard, and that I don't have a home. I rent a place, and I'm okay for today. But this conversation is so much closer to all of us than I think we realize, and I think it helps to put it into the context of the history of oppression in this country. So that was my little contribution to this.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, you all.
Oh, this is a heart project, certainly for me, and I know for Christine. I'm at a point in my life and career where I only want to do things that I feel are important and that can have positive social impact. It's just a decision I've made in my life. And thank you for pointing out that this really, it is that close. When I say it's one medical disaster away or it's one subprime robbery away, it's thank you for illustrating that. It's so very true. And those are the stereotypes we want to break. You're an educated individual. Ronnie, who you saw in the film, he was a well-paid engineer with a great career. And he wound up hooked on drugs thanks to the medical profession. And when he was released from the hospital, it was when the pandemic was beginning and he couldn't get an appointment to see a pain management doctor. And it just became easier for him to go on the streets and get his fix. And that's how he fell into homelessness. I think there's a Patricia who wanted to say something.
Yes. How can we help?
Well, I can we have a Kickstarter campaign going. How you can help right now is to help us make the film. And that takes money, obviously. I won't, beat around the bush around that. I will put our Kickstarter link in the chat, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, I will also send out an email to our Mastery Circle group with your Kickstarter link and a few words about it. Sam and I have already pledged. And you might explain to people how different Kickstarter is than, say, GoFundMe. It's operated very differently.
Yeah, Kickstarter, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's the largest of the crowdfunding platforms. The caveat here is that it's all or nothing. We set a goal of raising $25,000 through Kickstarter. If we don't get $25,000 pledged, we get nothing. And nobody's credit card gets charged. And we just fall on our faces, basically.
So we have to meet or exceed and we are hoping to exceed the $25,000. But and as part of that, we chose Kickstarter because it's very conducive to film funding, to film projects, and we have an amazing young college graduate who is really the behind all of this, which is wonderful. It's no small task because, as I said in my share, we did this. When Stephen and I first started even talking about fundraising, he said, "I'm not doing a crowdfunding campaign," and he said because they're way too much work. And then fast forward several months. We really decided that we wanted to come out with the message of the film. We wanted to build community around this, authentic, connected community, and we wanted to take people on this this journey of making the film and then birthing the film and having it and the impact campaign make its way into the world. So this is as much about building community as it is about raising funds. The $25,000 is not what it will take to make the film. We are looking to resume filming in June. Actually, we're going to be in Washington, D.C. Next month, just for a couple of days of filming, because there's a case that's going before the Supreme Court that we're going to be filming around that, and also doing some other interviews. But
it's actually this month. We're
oh
in
yes,
April.
that's right. It's April 22nd.
April 22nd, we will be filming something outside the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and just to give you a little snippet of that, it's the Johnson versus Grant Pass case, and we would not be going there if it wasn't something very important. This is sort of a groundbreaking case, and the case states that someone who is not housed can be
arrested,
fined or arrested for being that. So if you see someone with a sleeping bag and a pillow on the street, they can be arrested. It was passed as that. This is the appeal, because basically, and the National Coalition for the Homeless and Covenant House and many organizations will be there to protest this, because they do not feel that homelessness should be criminalized if there's not affordable housing to be had. So that's the important part. And so so we're going to be doing that. But in terms of how you can help, so yes, one is by contributing to the Kickstarter campaign, and we have wonderful rewards that you can get for that. But the other thing is to share this with people, to share the message of this, because again, this is taking a massive village in terms of the people who help one person escape from homelessness. It's also going to take a massive village to shift the mindset, to help people understand, and for us ourselves to understand that these are people who are incredibly human, like Mary Grace's daughter, like Thomas, like my daughter, who doesn't have a permanent place of her own to call her own, and my son, who is a digital nomad, but who is just about to put an offer, I think, this week on a house. So, it's like we're all in this journey. But so by sharing it, by encouraging other people to, we also are sending out occasional updates. So you can also, and you'll get the updates also through Kickstarter. But we really are looking to have people join us in this, and the best way that we know is word of mouth. We're also on social media and that kind of thing, but that can be shared in another email. But also, if your stories, we're open to if there are stories that you want to share with us, we listen to everyone. Every day we're being exposed to stories, and what the film is going to do, we're focusing on veterans, families, and young adults, because through each of those segments, we will be able to share stories that relate to PTSD, thinking about veterans being unappreciated in thinking about veterans. With families, it's not always mothers and their children. It can be fathers too. But you saw there's a headline about domestic violence as being the #1 cause of homelessness among women in Los Angeles. And then young adults, these are also will include people who have aged out of the foster system. And there's also in there about gender, what do you call it? Exilation, where kids are not welcomed from home because of their gender choices. So we're really looking to have this reveal different angles of this, to really show that there is not one angle. It's not the guy on the street with the cardboard sign and the stuff behind him. That's some of it, but in the case of women, they're in shelters, or they may be staying with, friends, or in an abandoned house or whatever. Anyway, Eugenia. Oh,
I have just put my email address in the chat. If anybody cares to, feel free to email me. And I think there was a Carolyn who was probably next.
Yes, Carolyn was actually first, and then Eugenia, and then it looks like Ruth.
And I will send out both of your email addresses with the Kickstarter campaign.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary Grace. Carolyn.
Thank you, Christine and Stephen, for your vision, for your focus, for seeing another area which has been non-seen. As Thomas said, how people are saying, those people, they're not monolithic. They're not so much people as persons. And the whole idea of getting to know people, now that takes time. And in some cases, it might take courage. But if we're all one, and as Jonathan said, all one love, the more we come from love in our life in general, the more we can give our hearts to people. Anyway, the point is that people need to be seen and respected as individuals. And even though we're a nation that was built on individuality, we've lost that. And so I think this will really help seeing people as persons. Thank you.
Steve and Christine, also just to let you know, you have 5 minutes. So you have a couple, Eugenia and Ruth, but if you can then wrap up afterward.
Yeah. Okay, great. Eugenia?
Just a couple things. Thank you all for being here and showing us this. And when Mary Grace sent out the email the other day that you were coming, I thought it was ironic that that was Saturday in the LA Times on the California LA homeless deaths deal largely with amphetamine or with fentanyl and other drugs. And I have on my desk, the place about writing to the LA Times about your ideas on homelessness. So my question is, I think as you say, wherever you live, it exists, and we know people if we are not those people. And I certainly am in both of those categories. My question is, do you plan to go with the film? Where do you want to take it to show people?
We are filming primarily in Los Angeles, which, has an unfortunate distinction of being #1 in the country for homelessness. But we see this as a shot locally, but with a global impact. Homelessness is not just restricted to the United States, as we all know. Anywhere you go in the world, you will see it. And we want this to go as broad as humanly possible. That is our hope and our wish for the film. We want to touch people all over the place, and I think that people will respond. And finally, Ruth had something to say. I know we're short on time here.
I also want to say that we're, along with it will be a collection of photographs that will be a traveling collection, because as the film goes around, as the collection goes around, we want to be convening screenings and talkbacks and panels and discussions, and also bring the film into schools and other community groups with also an option of a shorter version that fits within a teaching module, for example, at a high school.
Yeah. And finally, Ruth had something, I think, somebody?
Important topic, and we all wish you well, and I will do my best also to get the word out to my networks. My question is when Garcetti was our mayor, $1 trillion was assigned to the issue of homelessness, and we're all asking ourselves what happened, to that money. And And I noticed in Culver City, where I live, and right around the environs of Sony Studio, they're building hundreds and hundreds of apartments, but they're all going to be priced out of the range of people, especially homeless, but even people who have jobs. It seems to me there's some fundamental problem in the structure of the housing in our city and the way that the city is relating to it, because that unit you spoke of, Stephen, I think it's on Santa Monica Boulevard, if I'm
Correct.
I know my cousin has been very involved in helping in that, and people around there were very apprehensive, and so I think we can get past that. But I think it's more fundamental about our values here as a city and the way we look at these things. And I wonder how it compares to the other homeless cities around the place of homeless people around the world. Is there some substantial difference in the way they're handling the problem and we are? I know that's a long question, but you know, it's I would love to understand it more.
Well, I would say that how it's being handled around other places is stuff that we're still learning as we go. I will say a funny anecdote that the owner of the building where my office is was the most vocal opponent to the building next door. And now that that building is open and full, there are no problems. I have gotten to know many people in that building who are wonderful individuals. There's one guy who used to play in the National Football League. He's become a friend of mine and will be featured in the film. These are real people. And yes, somebody's waving at me.
Yeah, I just one final thing is Karen Bass, the mayor, has done her priority is to take away a lot of the red tape that's making it difficult for housing to be built. But there's more about that, and it would be great to talk more.
And Levita?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be very brief. There's apartment buildings the Chinese, I believe, own downtown LA. Why isn't that being considered? They're sitting down there empty, where they could be transformed into homeless housing. That's one. We used to have a member, Sally Evans and David Evans, that Sally worked at PATH, which is downtown LA. She has a great history of being involved, where they have overnight facilities, certainly, but downstairs it's barbershops and computers and training, and they can bathe. And there's a lot of things like that that, you know, I think could be a great source of information, if nothing else, and cooperation, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have an amazing executive producer who's produced over 50 films, and he knows people who are on the board of that organization. It's definitely one that is doing amazing work.
PATH, yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you all for listening to us. We appreciate it.
And I did put Stephen's email in it. Oh, I guess maybe he did too. And then also the link to the Kickstarter campaign. And Mary Grace, thank you. Thank you for inviting us. And Dana, I think Dana had to go down the road, but so appreciate being part of this. And I'd love to hopefully join you in one of the in-person meetings and this. This is a wonderful group.
You know, just their Kickstarter, they need to raise this by April 24th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this is something where you pledge and then you don't receive they don't actually take the money for it until they make the 25,000 and at the end of this month. So just kind of a little heads up on that. We need to move quickly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Grace. Really.
And Mary Grace, you're the one that brought up our deadline. I mean, we're so invested in what this is about. It's like, oh yeah, and there is this deadline. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you both very, very much. Really, thank you.
Very inspiring. Thank you for doing something to make a difference. Thank you. Thank you for caring.